The U.S., which is the largest and most important market, has been going up for the longest in American history. We haven't had a serious problem since 2009, to be precise. Now, maybe it's going to go on forever. Maybe the politicians in Washington have solved the world's problems. I'm skeptical of that. So I'm mainly worried about is not if, but when the next bear market's going to come, because I know it's going to be extremely serious. It's been so long since we've had a big bear market, was the main problem. But the second problem is the debt in Washington. It's incomprehensible how staggering it goes. And I'm not even sure anybody in Washington can count that high or even wants to count that high. So I know the next time we have a problem, it has to be the worst in my lifetime. And I'm older than you, so it's going to be the worst in your lifetime too. Unfortunately, I'm old enough to have heard many generations of politicians explain. They appoint special commissions to ensure that it happens. They pass special acts of Congress to guarantee it happens. I mean, yeah, these are smart guys, knowledgeable guys. They understand the world. But so did many other people in American history in my lifetime, much less before my lifetime. So, okay, yeah, great, wonderful. If we take them at their word, it's going to happen. I'm just skeptical because I've heard it so many times before, and not just in the U.S., but we're talking about the U.S., so mainly in the U.S. Throughout history, tariffs have hurt everybody, including the people imposing the tariffs. Now, I don't know any time in history when somebody can say that was a good thing. We saved the world. We saved our country. We saved our industry by doing it. Maybe the world has changed. Maybe it's different now. But you're exactly right. You're very perceptive. It's never worked. Now, Mr. Trump thinks that it's going to work. He thinks he knows what he's doing. And maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's always led to bigger problems. What I'm mainly worried about is the world economy and the debt skyrocketing everywhere. I mean, even China, in 2008, China bailed us out. They had a lot of money saved up. Even China has a lot of debt now. So I don't know who's going to bail us out this time. North Korea, they don't have any debt, but they don't have any money either. The Japanese are spending money like crazy. The Japanese stock market was down for 35 years. That's not a typo. Now it's going through the roof because Japan is spending huge amounts of money. It's a wonderful, wonderful period in Japan if you happen to own shares or want to own shares. But it's never happened before where everybody is making huge amounts of money and everybody is happy. I guess I've been around too long. When I see that everybody is happy, I start getting worried because I know when everybody's happy, people are going to be unhappy soon. The problem with the gold standard is it works. And when things get tough, because the gold standard works, politicians give up and change the rules. They say, oh, we didn't mean to hurt this much. We didn't want this much pain. So, yeah, I mean, they may try something like that. They've been tried many times in history. The silver standard. You may remember that the U.S. was founded on a silver monetary system in the 1790s. They changed it 100 years later. Silver has been the basis for money around the world for many times because silver was the monetary basis in those days. So something may well happen. It often has. But to repeat, the problem is it works. And the reason they work is because they lead to discipline in hard times, which nobody wants. I don't want pain. I want happy days every day. So does everybody else. China is one of the few markets where I still own shares, mainly because I didn't sell them. If I found something, I would buy more. But there's no question that China has problems. They had a huge real estate bubble, gigantic bubble. They tried to stop it. Eventually it popped, and it's causing a lot of pain right now. They also had the virus, a huge virus as well, so they got hit twice. But if you look back at American history, we had some horrible times where if you were smart, you bought, you didn't sell. Because America was on its way to great success. Sure, China's going to have problems, and they're having problems, but I'm not a seller. Uzbekistan is a huge country. It's right in the middle of Eurasia, so it could be at a good place. 500, 600 years ago, there was a guy named Tamer. He became known as Tamerlane. He conquered a lot of the world, all the way from Europe to Japan. The word kamikaze comes from when they were invading Japan. and a typhoon came and blew the ships away. When he died, he was buried in Uzbekistan, and on his tomb it said, "Here lies Tamerlane. If anybody disturbs this tomb, it will bring great chaos to the world." The Russians took over Uzbekistan. In 1941, Russian architects were going to go into Tamerlane's tomb to see what was there. The day they had opened Tamerlane's tomb to go in, Hitler invaded Russia. So Tamerlane was right. So be careful. Anyway, the country's had great success at times in history. It has lots of natural resources, lots of manufacturing, and a good location. The new crowd, after the Soviets, after the Russians, are trying to change the country, and they would run the country the way you and I would run the country. It's got a small stock market. If it works, the shares are all going to go higher. Uzbekistan, it's one of the two countries where I still own shares. People usually, when they say commodities, they really mean gold and silver. I own both. I'm not buying either right now. If I were, I would buy silver, because silver is down 40 or 50% from its all-time high. Gold is making all-time highs. Agriculture is more or less depressed in much of the world. Even oil. Oil is down a lot from its all-time high. I'm not buying oil, but I would start with agriculture if I were going to buy commodities. If you're going to buy miners, you have to know a lot about what you're doing. You've got to know the people. You've got to know the mine. You've got to know the reserves. You've got to know the politics. You've got to know many things. So yes, there are great opportunities if you get the right mining company. The problem is there are hundreds of them in the world. I think it was Mark Twain who said the definition of a liar is a hole in the ground with a miner at the top, because Mark Twain lost a lot of money in a gold mine, apparently, once upon a time. I don't own any fixed income because I expect inflation to come back and to come back strong, and therefore interest rates will go higher. I'm sure there's some emerging market debt that is attractive right now. I just don't know it. I mean, you look at places like Russia where there's a war. When there's a war, there's usually attractive opportunities. I don't have any. I'm an American, and we cannot invest in Russia right now. I happen to own a lot of cash, and the cash is mainly in U.S. dollars. You may say, why U.S. dollars after what you've said? And it's mainly because when turmoil comes, the world looks for a safe haven. The dollar will go higher, and I'll be smart enough to sell it, I hope. Now, what you should say now is, where will you put the money? And there's the problem. I don't know. I do not see yet a new competitor to the U.S. dollar. I look every day, but something will replace the dollar eventually, but I don't know what right now. So I have these dollars. I'm going to sell them eventually. Then what? I don't know. Well, it's extremely important to have a plan B, and a plan B should include everything such as somewhere else to live if you can. People, if possible, should have more than one passport in case. You hope you never need it. I don't like saying it. I am American. I'm keen on America. I live in Asia because I wanted my kids to speak Mandarin, and I realized the best way to do that was live where they had to speak Mandarin. But I've done that now. We've accomplished that. So now we obviously have to think about what's next. So far, I don't have an answer. And we may just stay in Singapore. Singapore is a wonderful place for many, many reasons. You hope you never, ever have to worry about where you live. But if it happens, it's too late once you cannot do anything. Well, one should certainly have bank accounts, investment accounts in another country besides your own for the same reason. I mean, if all of a sudden you want to invest in country X, it's probably too late by the time the world realizes, oh my gosh, let's get there fast. You have to have these things in place in advance, and then there's no problem. You can act when you have to act. If you have to suddenly scramble around and try to open a bank account in country X is not interested. In your own country is going to make it difficult for you to take your money elsewhere. So figure out which countries you know something about, or maybe where you have some heritage or something. But please develop a plan B. The first big mistake was I had a huge success early in my career. I thought I was going to be the next Bernard Baruch. I couldn't believe how smart I was. Needless to say, a few months later, I lost everything, because what I didn't understand in that particular time, and this applies to everybody, I didn't understand there were lots of people in the market who didn't know as much as I knew. I thought everybody knew what I knew. Well, turns out a lot of people didn't. They bought crazy stocks at crazy prices, and I got wiped out. Everything I shorted at that time went bankrupt eventually, but I lost everything first because there were lots of people who didn't know as much about the world as I thought I did. And you better understand the markets, and you better understand the market mentality. That's perhaps the most important lesson I learned. But fortunately, I survived. There was nothing I could do except try to start over, which is what I did. I mean, I can remember once in 1980, I started shorting oil, which was extremely high. That weekend, Iran and Iraq went to war. And needless to say, the price of oil didn't go down. You could say, oh, what a bad luck. Yeah, bad luck. But somebody knew that war was starting. Somebody knew the troops were moving. Somebody had done enough homework, not me. So I lost a lot of money because the price of oil skyrocketed. I hope I'm smart enough to sell short soon because I can see a lot of exuberance developing in markets. I'm not shorting right now because I don't see wild hysteria yet. At the moment, it's just looking at the world, it would probably be in the magic 7, or whatever the number is in the U.S. You know, there's stocks that go up every day, no matter what. I'm not short any of those, but I would imagine that if and when I sell short, that would be a place to start.